Green Mansions by W.H. Hudson. A 1904 novel by a very interesting author, Henry Hudson. Most of his published work was nonfiction, though he did always write fiction. He's a very interesting, he had a very interesting, pedigree, history, I guess you'd say. I don't know, family history. But his parents were from New England, like the East Coast. But he was raised entirely in Argentina, and didn't leave there until his 30s. But then he didn't go to New England. When he left, he went to England. Some things I've written call him an American Anglo author, but he's really an American Argentinian Anglo author. So that's kind of wild. But he wrote all these nonfiction books. Some of them sound really cool. One of them sounds An Idle Time in the Pampas. Pampas are these vast, often flooded plains in Brazil and throughout South America. And not that I know them personally, but he wrote this book about a time that he was sick. I read an old review for it. I pretty much read everything on JSTOR about this book. JSTOR is the academic site that has old out-of-print papers and things. Got some interesting visuals. Maybe I'll make one the thumbnail for this video. That's the level of technology I can achieve on this channel. Listen to that purr. She loves this book. But I'll tell you what, I'm so glad I read this book, and I really liked it, and I'm so glad I'm aware of W.H. Hudson now. He was a friend of Conrad's. He was a friend of Ford Madox Ford. He was admired by Hemingway. He was an interesting figure, and he kind of reminds me of Edward Abbey, the more I think about him, that he wrote so passionately about this landscape, but wrote occasional great fiction. When I say this is a great work, it's considered like a bridge work. I had never heard of it before I started seeing copies of it recently at Page One. Someone there must like it. And I grabbed up the 2 copies I saw and gave one to someone else that may or may not still be reading along. Anyway, I hope people never feel obligated when they do stuff like that. It's just fun if you can manage it. This cat's so great. Prisma's so great. So anyway, Green Mansions is the story of a young man named Abel. Second book I've read in the paperback project with a protagonist named Abel. And while I was reading this at my work, some young hooligan named Kane, but spelled Kane, tagged the bathroom mirror from an HSK gang. I think I know who that is. It's kind of a masked version of the actual tag. Interesting to see old stories still played out around us. Recently I was just thinking about how much influence some figures have had across history. Like Elvis, for instance. The high school that I've been working at the front desk, they recently had a graduation ceremony at this Coliseum that Elvis played at long ago. And I'm like, that's so crazy. And then someone was just in the lobby one time and they're all, thank you very much. And I'm like, that is crazy. This guy, the Any figures are like that. They're pervasive like that. I catch a lot of Talladega Nights references in that office. Funny. In the Super Mario movie. Anyway, Green Mansions is about a guy named Abel, who's kind of like the author, but they seem to have a different nationality and ethnicity a little bit. I think this book says that this character is from Spain originally. And it really is a story of the South American jungle. And it's so interesting. The green mansions are the treetops. It's the rainforest. And the descriptions are beautiful, even though they're from someone that had been to South America, but not exactly to the places written about here. And the introduction, which I read twice at the beginning and the ending, and which is really good and thorough. Introduction by Carlos Baker, professor of English at Princeton University. Oh, and illustrated by Sheila Beckett. Sheila Beckett was this Golden Books illustrator, those kids' books, and she illustrated 70 Golden Books over her career. I think she may have also illustrated the cover of this copy of Candide that I have. Pretty sure this is the same illustrator, yeah. Prismo, you're camera shy. Cats are boycotting this project. But the art in this is just beautiful. If you ever get a copy of this that happens just to be completely falling apart beyond tape upable, the illustrations in this would make excellent framed art anywhere, anytime. Also, every chapter starts with a little, awesome artwork. It's great. It's a beautiful book. Here's one of the pieces. One of the most unrealistic parts of this book is that she wears a dress woven by spiders, and it's spider silk. I'm like, okay, you stretch the limits of believability here. I guess is this magical? If not for that, it could be a totally IRL real work of realism kind of, even though it's very quote unquote romantic, and just romantic. I mean, it's got that element, but it also always feels allegorical. I was wondering, about some of the drawings, could this be considered racist? Because the native figures are drawn always as dark silhouettes, not always, and the protagonists are like this. I'm telling you though, the art is really beautiful in this. In the back it says, drawing on the cover of this Bantam Classic is by Sheila Beckett, but she also did the drawings inside, and I think she did the decorations around the letters at the beginning. It seems her style as well. It's a beautiful book. The other copy I had was beautiful too, and I will probably rebuy a copy of that one just because, did you see that thing? But honestly, there's 5 beautiful paperbacks of this novel. This was very popular. It came out in 1904. It was reprinted in 1916, and it was Scribner's first book, and it was their big hit, and got them into the world. And I think it was regarded as more of a classic and was more known for a long time because it does have elements of older works in its writing style, a little bit Edgar Rice Burroughs, Kipling, something vaguely exoticizing, etc. But it's written from this really unique perspective of somebody that grew up Argentinian. I gotta tell you, there are so many beautiful passages of nature writing in here. It's just, I really love that, and the things about light and shadow, just good writing. I found myself in the home stretch of this book thinking, I'm definitely going to reread this. And I thought that also while reading the introduction after having read the book. This is a family show. Oh, Squirrel. I had the most vivid dream last night that Squirrel was like a giant lion. She was sitting on the bed and took up the whole space of the bed. And it was that was who she really was. And I woke up and I was like, Squirrel, I see your true self. You are a giant lion. Prismo, you probably are too. Oh yeah, look, illustrated by Sheila Beckett. Okay. So Doc Cook, teacher, writer, naturalist, and connoisseur of thrush music. I love stuff like that. I'm that was a person. And introduction was written by a person. I mean, it's crazy. I was thinking of that Smith's lyric. They were born and then they lived and then they died. It seems so unfair. I once cry. Hudson had reached the not always enviable position of writer's writer. Huh. Like James Salter or someone like that, I think. I think James Agee is a writer's writer, too. Also James Baldwin. Weird. Lots of people named James, probably. And I thought this was cool. What may be called Rima's double aspect seems bird-like as well. Among her forest trees, she is wild, joyous, wayward, free, and utterly self-reliant. In the shadowy corner of Nuffalo's hut, she is colorless, caged, subdued, and withdrawn. Like a bird in a cage. That's great. But yeah, so Abel is always hearing this bird noise. It's kind of a slow build, and it's an effective, interesting build. I'm like, wow, you're really holding off. It's just the guy goes to the woods a lot, and it's beautifully described. Let's see what we got going on here. Oh, yeah, I forgot I had this prologue. It's kind of the frame story. Grandpa telling a story to his grandkid. No, not that, but something kind of like that. Telling a story at a train station. Every nation, someone remarks, has the government it deserves, and Venezuela certainly has the one it deserves that suits it best. We call it a republic not only because it is not one, but also because the thing must have a name. To have a good name or a fine name is very convenient, especially when you want to borrow money. That leafy cloudland. I wrote birds. Unmistakably, it was uttered by the same being heard on former occasions, but today it was different in character. The utterance was far more rapid, with fewer silent intervals, and it had none of the usual tenderness in it, nor even once sunk to that low, whisper-like talking which it seemed to me as if the spirit of the wind had breathed its slow sighs and syllables in speech. That was not only loud, rapid, and continuous, but while still musical, there was an incisiveness in it, a sharp ring as of resentment, which made it strike painfully on the sense. I guess I love this kind of specific writing. Emotion in leaves and fronds and thread-like stems of creepers hanging near the surface, as if some passing body had touched and made them tremble, and once or twice that I even had a glimpse of a gray, misty object moving at no great distance in the deeper shadows. Hey, that's just cool. Now that it had led me to this place of shadow and profound silence and had ceased to speak and to lead, I could not help thinking that this was my goal, that I had been brought to this spot with a purpose, that in this wild and solitary retreat some tremendous adventure was about to befall me. And then Jesus and God appeared to him. No, that's a little Joseph Smith joke. Yeah, some of the illustrations could probably be considered caricatures, but for this is the sweetest thing that solitude has for us, that we are free in it and no convention holds us. I dropped on my knees and kissed the stony ground, then casting up my eyes, thanked the author of my being for the gift of that wild forest, those green mansions, where I had found so great a happiness. On the hills where I had gone to search for a curious blue flower which grew in such places. So ran my thoughts as I rested on the warm ground, gazing up into the foliage, green as young grass in the lower shady parts, and above luminous with the bright sunlight, and full of the murmuring sounds of insect life. My every action, word, thought had my feeling for Rima as a motive. Why, I began to ask myself, was Rima so much to me? It was easy to answer that question, because nothing so exquisite had ever been created. All the separate and fragmentary beauty and melody and graceful motion found scattered throughout nature were concentrated and harmoniously combined in her. How various, how luminous, how divine she was, a being for the mind to marvel at, to admire continually, finding some new grace and charm every hour, every moment to add to the old. There was, besides the fascinating mystery surrounding her origin, to arouse and keep my interest in her continually active. After a cold draught, obtained by putting my lips to a black rock from which the water was trickling, I set it on my walk home. It is charging. Stop telling me it's not charging. There's so many illustrations in this book. Sheila Beckett's a really interesting author. She lived to be 100. She was married to another illustrator. I think Frederick was part of his name, but I don't remember. Married to artist J. Frederick Smith. I took notes. Illustrated 70 golden books, including Candide, 1959. Oh, Necco wafers, that's cool. Whitman chocolates, I believe that's her Candide. This paperback is 1961, and her illustrations were 1959. I envied them not their wings. At that moment, earth did not seem fixed and solid beneath me, nor I bound by gravity to it. The faint floating clouds, the blue infinite heaven itself seemed not more ethereal and free than I or the ground I walked on. The low stony hills on my right hand, of which I caught occasional glimpses through the trees, looking now blue and delicate in the level rays, were no more than the billowy projections on the moving cloud of earth. The trees of unnumbered kinds, great mora, cecropia, greenheart, bush and fern, and suspended lianas, and tall palms balancing their feathery foliage on slender stems, all was but a fantastic mist, embroidery covering the surface of that floating cloud on which my feet were set, and which floated with me near the sun. Yeah, that's good writing. I am a little disappointed by the ending. It's a kind of a tragedy, this book. It's definitely a tragedy. There's a massacre in it. There's a big fight. It was turned into a botched 1959 movie starring Audrey Hepburn. I watched the trailer, and it was a huge flop. Took many liberties, apparently, in the adaptation. But then, weirdly, it became a comic character. Or rather, a character in it did. Rima, the girl in the jungle. Rima, the jungle girl. She's called Rima, the bird girl in this book. But there was a 7-issue series that was published by Marvel, and I would like to get it. I think it was Marvel. No, I'm totally wrong. It was DC, because she was later a part of Super Friends and fought alongside Batman and Superman. And that's a crazy twist for this book to take. Spoiler alert, things don't go well for her in this book, but she lives to fight alongside Superman in the comics. And she's been rebooted in the comics once or twice. She's been mentioned in the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, that comic by Alan Moore. And she's mentioned in, this book is mentioned, I think, or at least she is, in the story The Veldt by Ray Bradbury. I've learned some things. There are so many beautiful editions of this book. You can get a hardcover first edition for $35 online, I see. And there have been $15 hard first cover editions on eBay. And then most of the paperbacks you can get for like a few bucks. And I'm like, this would be a good title to collect because it's a good book. And there are many beautiful paperback editions. Yeah, I don't know. This is a pretty satisfying read. And now W.H. Hudson is definitely on my radar. I'd like to read Idle Days in Patagonia, about when he was injured and just watching. I'm like, that's like Pilgrim at Tinker Creek or This Desert Year from Joseph Crouch. That's like Walden. That's great. But 1893, when was Walden? There's so many beautiful copies of Walden. Okay, that store doesn't exist anymore. West side of Republic Square, Montgomery at San Pedro, Albuquerque, New Mexico. R.I.P. to a bookstore I never got to go to. And again, I don't know. I've had memories come back of bookstores that I've been to in Albuquerque that I went to with my mom or dad when I was a kid. Like I'd see a stamp in a book, look it up, and then be like, oh yeah, after looking at it on Google Earth. He was born in 1817. 1841, he went to stay with the Emersons as a handyman. 1845 to 1847. Okay, that's when he was at Walden Pond. Books probably from shortly after that. Anyway, I really liked that this author was so obviously like a naturalist and an appreciator of aesthetics, you know, because he lived into his 80s. This is just a great book. Well, yeah, it's great. It's excellent. There's only like one other video on YouTube about it, and he talks about how I must be the only person who's read this. Pretty funny. I enjoyed that. He was like, at the end, he's like, I think this is one of my 5 favorite books now. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. I'm glad it hit you so hard. I just have read a lot of books that I really love, so things rise up the list kind of slowly. But I could see myself rereading this and still really liking it. It's great. I mean, and a work doesn't have to be perfect to be moving and enduring, you know? Green Mansions by W.H. Holmes. Yeah, have people read this? I feel like I've read The Veldt before. I'm vaguely aware of Rima the Jungle Girl as a character. She was in the Super Friends cartoon also. Crazy, in like the 70s or 80s. I think early 80s. I bet this book will get turned into a movie or something somewhere down the line. I could see it being an A24 film, honestly. If you had a director on this like Kenneth Branagh that was good with dramatic stuff, I think that could be interesting. Honestly, a director like Terrence Malick would be best. Somebody who really lets the camera linger over the natural world, because that's the coolest part of this book. It's got a great setting. In fact, that's how I'm going to remember this book, I think, is that it's got an excellent setting, which is how I remember Lermontov's A Hero of Our Time also. I'm just like, I love that setting so much. That book was the Caucasus Mountains. This is the dense jungle, but it really does feel like green mansions or green cathedrals all the time with just the sunlight coming in through the trees. Very evocative. Frequently made me think, I really should call this summer camp and take one of these summer jobs. I hope that ship hasn't sailed, but I don't think I can commit to it for the full time. Nature calls me to rejoin it. Not in a deathly way, you know. Like rotting into the earth, which is the eventual fate of us all. Maybe it's relaxing. I feel like this cover feels like there's more than one face in there, right? Like, isn't that kind of a larger face right there? And then you have the woman lying there. Like it's supposed to be a sort of ambiguous image. You could take it literally one way, but I feel like, or maybe she's on a giant stone head. Maybe that's the literal thing. Maybe there's no head there. But no, I feel like the artist was like being very compositionally playful here. Sheila Beckett. There's no credits in this book, so I can't be sure. Yeah, they don't even bother. But I see a similarity in the style. Well, very good book, you know? The paperback project has been pretty good so far. Reading lots of awesome stuff. By the time I read that whole bookcase of 190 literary fiction paperbacks, I feel like I'll be expanded and broadened. You know, my world will be bigger. And I'll be a better writer because I'll be reading good work. You know, every day in every way. I'm getting better and better. Isn't that something people used to chant to themselves in their mirror? You know, that's like a cool way to be, though. Pretty cool if that could be the case everywhere in life. I do not know what I'm hearing. Is somebody using like a toy car outside or something? I think someone's trying to start a car. Next, I'm going to finally finish this. I'm about halfway through already. This
is from last night. So I was told to dress funereal for my daughter's school event. She's 12.
Oh, they're great.
And then I had this event sprung on me that was at my kid's school, which is kind of a quirky private school that we found in a pinch when she became a COVID dropout that refused to go to school when there was it was Zoom all the time. She's like, I hate it. But the school we found is like really suits her temperament. They have guides, not teachers, and the kids are really like self-directed. They just did a whole thing on death, and it was kind of profound, honestly. I wish someone had recorded this thing last night. One kid, I'm pretty sure, wrote his with ChatGPT. I'm suspicious. I felt some insincerity with that one. The theme was death, and they had a whole collage area of people's beloved dead pets. And this was our cat Marcy, Marceline, Stripes Queen. She had a million nicknames. She was like a little human. Look at her. She's like the Buddha. She was like enlightened and wise. But the kids were all talking about death, and her life was too short. And I'm so sorry, Marcy. You should still be with us. But the kids all got up and read poems about death that they had written. A little rushed in their presentation, but it was interesting. The work itself was always sincere, and some of the speeches were really sincere. And it was great to see my 12-year-old daughter talk about this subject of death, and like she wrote her epitaph, and all these other kids did too. And so many of them want to start animal preserves and be artists and writers. I'm like, I'm proud of these young people. They're awesome. And one was like, I'm going to live with the wolves, and it was like such a beautiful declaration. I thought like Everett Ruiz would love it. I love it, But then the parents at one point. It was a symbolic event, obviously organized by young people. Like any variety show, not every bit always worked, but it was great overall. And in one part, we had all the parents sing a song from Coco. Oh my gosh. I try not to be a stick in the mud, but I always resist audience participation. Here's mine. Michael Farrell Smith, 1979 to 3500. Medical science improves. And when I presented mine, because I had to stand up, I was like, this is for all of us. You all get to live. We all benefit from this future technology. I think they were ready to boo. It was dodging the question of my own mortality. It's like, in this sci-fi reality? And then I said, art, love, community, nature. Keep it going, folks. Of course, I put the cats on there. Like, why didn't you draw pictures of your children? They understand. Cats are really cute. I picked this up just because I didn't think it should get thrown away and it was left behind. But my ex-wife, my kid's mom, wrote this one. I thought it was good. We were all stardust held together for a moment by love. That's nice. Marcy, you're the best. You're the best too, Prisma. And you, Squirrel. Soon there's going to be a third cat here. Sweet Pea or Mrs. P or Mrs. President. One of Prisma's other children. That is Anodyne's cat. And will be staying with us for just a very short while. Y'all are going to freak out about Sweet Pea's face. It's very cute. Okay, so this has been a review of Green Mansions, 1904 by W.H. Hudson. It's being added now to the already read portion. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, 6, 7, 8. I thought we already had 8. What's going on here? That sounds like a mystery for later. Anyway, here's the paperback project. I'm reading this whole bookcase over probably 4 or 5 years. Maybe shorter, who knows? Maybe longer, who cares? But if I count the one I'm reading now, well, I can't do that. I remember I said 8. I must have counted 8 because it's not hard to count. I was all 8 on its side is infinity, so I read infinity books. Just being logical. I find this strange. I gotta rewatch that video where I say that because I am confused. All right, this has been a review of Green Mansions by W.H. Hudson. It's cool you're all out there. Hello, viewers, etc. Especially if you watch this far. That's got to be a small minority. I know what it is. I have this out. I read this. But I'm rereading The Secret Share as I do every month. Because I'm reading it 12 times in about a year. It'll probably be like a year and a half. I keep missing. But I am. Mystery solved. So yeah, I've read 9, which is Dante's most sacred number. 3 Trinities. So this is a holy, blessed project. Probably approved by the new Pope. Here's the book I've been working on forever. I think I might do a video about
a crazy box of letters that I have. I have all the letters of a traveling salesman from the 70s. And I think I want to sell them. Anyway, next video. I've read 9 of, I think it's 191 now, books. But it'll probably pare down because I have to fit the books I read it. Yeah, I got to refigure that out. Yeah, it's going to be tricky to fit everything in here. I'm probably going to lose a title or two. But I'm going to end this video. But while I figure that out, you know, this shelf is ever evolving, but it's going to be a really refined collection by the time I finish this project. Like, these are the books available to an individual, me, at the time and place in which I am, you know, in history. And I'm totally going to get a book out of just this case here. I mean, I'll probably just direct quote a paragraph of whatever I have to say about every book, the videos that I make here, and then put them all together and polish it up, add some visuals, just like pictures of old books. Maybe I'll put them in funny settings, whatever. There might be a cat in there. You know what's a really good song? Find Me by Jam and Spoon from the 90s. That's like a lost Euro classic. Probably not lost in Europe at all. It was so all over their MTV when I was there when I was 15. But that song stuck in my head all the time. That's not what this video is about. Though that song would work really well in a movie about this book, now that I think about it. Honestly, if I were to adapt this in a movie, I think I would totally change the ending and just make it have a happy ending. But that totally changes the meaning. Yeah, but the tragedy is just not good enough to destroy this character that way. It seems like is a waste on both a human and a character level. I'm like, oh, why does this have to be sad, you know? Why is this when you got to bring the realism, the sad, depressing ending? That's when you bring the hope and give us the fictional truth, you know? Like, I kind of love that this character lived on and had an afterlife as a DC comic hero fighting with, and has been reimagined multiple times. That's great. Like, that's wonderful. What it reminds me of is the book The Meadow by James Galvin, which I love. I sworn I had a copy of The Meadow. But The Meadow is a mostly nonfiction book that has a fictional sequel, and he gives his neighbor, this character Lyle, who's a real person in the first book, this amazing afterlife where he goes on a heroic quest in the second one. I'm like, that's so cool. But that's kind of what DC Comics do in Rima the Jungle Girl for this character who maybe should not have been killed, you know? Like, is it a satisfying tragedy? Does the allegory make it make sense? The introduction points out that it means that the narrator crossing into Rima's world ensures her death. So yeah, that's a clean, you know, lesson, takeaway, literary experiment, you know, kind of like everyone who helps Odysseus is killed. But in this case, she's from a world that is not his, and like it's like matter and antimatter meeting.